follow-up on Ascendancy questions. A lot of people asked me to ask, regardless of the answer. Are we going to have, like, be able to see the full Ascendancies before launch?
We might be able to do that. Yeah, I'll talk to the community team and see what their plan is for that.
It is pretty much a 50-50, by the way.
Grinding Gear Games has dropped all the Ascendancy nodes. Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching me react. I haven't seen any of these Ascendancy nodes, but the community team for GGG has just released all of the Ascendancy nodes, so I'm going to react to them and look at them all blind now. I've downloaded all of the images, I've got them set up on a file so I can just go through one after the other. If you don't want to be spoiled on these, jump out now, I suppose. If you are kind of annoyed they were leaked, blame Zizaran, it's his fault, he asked. And if you're glad they leaked, go thank Zizaran, it's his fault that they leaked. So, this is good. I'm really excited. I wanted to know that these were out originally, just because it's such a pivotal point of character creation that having all of the information for them I think is a really good idea before jumping in, particularly because we've already seen about half of each of the Ascendancies anyway, so it's kind of just fixing it and like fully fleshing it out so you can make a fully informed decision. Anyway, let's jump in, shall we? So first things first, I think we have the Blood Mage. Indeed we do. So, full Blood Mage. Oh, this is fantastic. It tells us what the abilities do too. Oh, I'm happy. Chromomancer, we grant the skill Life Remnants, and skills gain a base life cost equal to their mana cost. This is interesting. Definitely a downgrade here, but drinks the blood of your enemies to restore your life. While active, enemies you kill have a chance to spawn a Life Remnant, and critically hitting a target spawns a Life Remnant every few seconds. Picking up a Life Remnant grants you life, which can overflow maximum life. Interesting. So it is somewhat viable in bosses because you also get one from critting. So that's good. The thing that people were kind of talking about, because we knew it would overflow your health to maximum, that was confirmed. What people were not entirely sure of, whether or not you would get these outside of mapping, because when you're actually doing bosses, we didn't know whether or not there was a way to spawn them, but apparently crit hits do spawn them, so that's good. Cool. Moving on, we have Vitality Siphon, 10% of spell damage leached as life. This is the one spell leech that we have access to in the game, I think. 3, which is down this way by itself. Open Sores. Your curses have infinite duration. I mean, that's not like insanely OP or anything, but it's cool. I like that. It means that you can like essentially do an opener on a boss and set up all of your curses and then not have to worry about it again. Interesting. I'm trying to think of a way that this is like, I can exploit this somehow, and I can't because I've never really used curses, so I don't really think about it much. Like curses I slap on at the end of the build when I have like room to put something, you know. Infinite duration curses is definitely interesting though. Moving on, we have Blood Barbs, which is 4, which is this one. Gain 10% of damage as extra physical damage. Elemental damage also contributes to bleeding magnitude. What the fuck? This is gain 10% of damage. It's just all of your, like, it's just total damage. Take 10%, add extra as physical? Because that seems nuts. And all elemental damage contributing to bleeding also sounds nuts. We're just going to be playing like a melee bleed build witch? That sounds fucking cool. Gore Spike, so we've seen this one before. It is nerfed compared to what we've seen before, though I'm pretty sure. It is half as effective as what we saw previously, I'm 99% sure. 1% increased critical damage bonus per 40 life. I'm pretty sure when we saw it in the presentation, it was 1% critical damage bonus per 20 life. So someone's done some math balancing on that, because that did seem kind of nuts before. It's still nuts, don't get me wrong, because it seems like we can life stack pretty huge here with life remnants, because this isn't per 40 max life, right? This is per 40 life. So we can double our health pool, and that's going to give us benefit all the way up, right? I guess the downside being it's somewhat conditional crit damage, but whatever, that works for me. Sunder the Flesh, base critical hit chance for spells is 15%. Hard to say whether this is good or not. I mean, it sounds good on its face, but they've spoken before in a couple of I think it was in the Ziz interview the other day, that he doesn't want every single build to essentially be, you get to endgame and then once you start scaling higher, everyone just goes to a full crit build. You want the crit build to be Like, getting 100% crit hit chance is not something that every build is going to get eventually, you know, if you scale it high enough. They want trade-offs, essentially, so it's hard to say whether or not this is good without saying how the rest of the crit scales, I guess, but... Anyway, Grasping Wounds. 25% of life loss from hits is prevented. Then that much life is lost over 4 seconds. Okay. Well, damn. That's fucking... What the hell is that ability called in POE 1? I'm sure it'll be popping up on screen right now. But that's, like, huge survivability. Particularly when you have, like, Spell Leech. Spell Leech, that's just good. And then we have Crimson Power, which is number 8, which is all the way down here, so you're going through Grasping Wounds to get it. Gain Energy Shield from equipped body armor as extra maximum life. Okay. Well, damn. The only question I have remaining about Blood Mage is how Sanguimancy is going to work if you take the Blood Magic Keystone. Because I'm pretty sure it's confirmed that Blood Magic is in PoE 2 and it's exactly the same as it was in PoE 1. And what Blood Magic does, by the way, is it takes whatever the mana cost... It removes all your mana and it makes the mana cost equal to health cost instead. So, by the base wording of Sanguimancy, it would mean that you essentially just eliminate your mana cost. Because skills gain a base life cost equal to their base mana cost. But if you take the Keystone, the base mana cost should be 0, which will cancel out the life cost and the mana cost. So it'll just be a flat life cost. But, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm intrigued how this goes with Blood Magic on the actual Keystone, but we'll see. Well, fuck me. There's gonna be some melee witches, isn't there? This here, Blood Barbs, is just so insanely interesting. God, so interesting. Slamming witches, I guess. Alright, move on to the next one. Oh, okay, cool. Chayula Monk. So this is the one that I plan on playing at the start. We'll see all the rest of the things we have in here. So Ravenous Doubt, we start from here, I guess. Yeah. We're at Ravenous Doubts, which is Instant Mana Leech. We already knew that one. 2, Consuming Questions. You cannot recharge Energy Shield. Mana Leech effects also recover Energy Shield. I think we knew about that one as well, actually. Yeah, so that's fine. Chayula's Gift. 10% maximum Chaos Resistance. Chaos Resistance is doubled. We knew about that one as well. Reality Rendings is this one. 23% chance to gain 25% of damage from hits as extra Chaos damage. This is a very confusing node. Like, I understand what it's saying, you just have less chance to get a higher damage. I assume these are independent? And what I mean by that is, like, you have a 7% chance to gain 100% of damage. I assume that's not a separate trigger to the 13 and 23%, because then theoretically you could get a 175% chance if you hit all 3 at once. I assume they're all of part of the same pool. I mean, this seems good. It does make your damage a bit random, though, which I guess is fine. I don't know, it's a confusing node. Interesting. Next we have 5, which is coming down this direction. We get Waking Dream, which grants Into the Breach. Creates a breach around you, allowing you to see nearby flames of Chayula. You are considered to be in a breach while this skill is active. Interesting. And then we have Flames of Chayula. Collecting Flames of Chayula grants the following bonuses. Red Flames leech 7% of your maximum life to you. Blue Flames leech 7% of your maximum mana to you. Interesting. Interesting. Purple Flames provide a stacking buff granting 7% of damage as chaos damage for 5 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. So I thought, when I first heard about this in the reveal, I was assuming that the pickups you were getting were just granting you health and mana. In the same way that the Blood Mage with Remnants was like just giving you health. It's not though. It's specifically leeching that, which is better for the monk because you have this node up here where you also leech Energy Shield when you leech mana. So if you're getting Blue Flames of Chayula, you get 7% of your maximum mana leeched to both Energy Shield and mana. That just seems very good. Also, the stacking buff of damage also seems good. Stacking 10 times. I don't know whether or not it's going to be feasible. It only lasts 5 seconds, so I don't know how feasible it's going to have 10 up at a time, but we'll see. Interesting. And then if you follow that down, effect and duration of Flames of Chayula on you is doubled. 14% of maximum mana instant leached. Interesting here though, creates a breach around you, allowing you to see nearby flames of Chayula. So it doesn't say you're creating the flames. I guess there's just a certain amount that are there. That's kind of confusing. I don't know what defines that. Interesting though. It's very interesting. Okay, Embrace the Darkness. This removes all spirit. Base maximum darkness is 100. For each life or energy shield lost to damage, reserve 1 darkness instead, if possible. Darkness reservation lasts for 10 seconds. Plus 5 to maximum darkness per level. Interesting. So I think my plan here is still to go Mind Over Matter. Because theoretically we should be able to get a lot of mana back because of this. And I'll probably have mana leech on some attacks as well. So we should have a lot of mana all the time, and then we can use mana as health. And we're just always going to have this darkness, because this says specifically for each life or energy shield lost to damage. So if my mana is protecting my life and my energy shield, then I should just always have max darkness. Which is good for the next node, which is Grasp of the Void, which we've already seen as well. Gain 1% of damage as extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness. I did not mean to zoom in like that. Gain 1% of damage as extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness. Interesting. And then finally, this last node, Inner Silence. 50% reduced darkness reservation duration. I think my current plans for building this, I would never take this, because ideally you'd never go low on darkness ever, because you're protected with your mana, but we'll see how this works. Very interesting stuff though. Alright, next up we have Chromomancer. Okay, so 1. Now and again, skills have 33% chance to not consume a cooldown when used. Interesting. It's interesting how many abilities are going to have cooldowns. I guess some definitely do. Like we know, what's it called? The ice meteor thing. That has a relatively long cooldown, I think. And then we get 2 is Unbound Encore. Grant skill Time Snap. Manipulates time resetting cooldowns on your other skills. Cool. 3. Weird way to order these, but okay. Ultimate Command. Time Freeze. Okay, that's Time Freeze. Release a large wave that stops time for all affected enemies for a duration. Duration is lower the more times the enemy has had time stopped for them. Okay. That makes a bit of sense, because we were kind of speculating to go in with like a 6-man team with all having time stop. So you just time freeze, then as soon as it ends, time freeze, as soon as it ends, time freeze. But there seems to be some kind of diminishing returns at least, which is interesting. I guess that's probably a good balance in all, if you consider all things together, really. 4 is this one here. So by the look of it, you actually have to get 4 to be able to get 3, which is why I was talking about the numbers being odd. It's a weird numbered thing. But yeah, Temporal Rift. Passively leaves after images of your recent past. Cast a spell to return to the oldest after image, teleporting to that location and resetting your life, mana, and energy shield to the values they had at that time. That seems cool. It's kind of like an oh shit button, but oh shit buttons are okay. I'm okay with them. And then we have number 5, which is just down here. Every 12 seconds, gain 50% more cast speed for 4 seconds. I assume this is perpetual, so if we have... I assume it's 4 seconds of 50% extra cast time and 8 seconds down, would be my assumption. But with the wording, it could also be every... Like, it may not start counting the 12 seconds until the 4 seconds is up, in which case it's 12 seconds downtime, which is obviously worse. I also don't know whether I like having cast speed different, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't like the idea of having cast speed not the same all the time. That would feel weird, I would think, but maybe not. Maybe it's just an upgrade. Maybe you just feel better half the time, I guess. 6, we have on the other side, Apex of the Moment. Enemies in your presence are slowed by 20%. That's nuts. So that's really good, because that's just perpetual. That's always in effect. I guess it also depends what presence means, because I haven't actually seen this highlighted yet. So it'll be in some area around you, I just don't know how far that area is. 7 is if we go down the middle, we have Circular Heartbeat. 30% of damage taken recouped as life. That's a cool survivability node. And then 8, we have the Rapid River. Recoup effects instead occur over 4 seconds. I'm trying to think of why that's useful. I guess it means you're always recovering, which mitigates more damage over time effects, I suppose. I don't know, it depends how recoup works, I guess. Presumably it's the same as in POE 1, but it might be different. Alright, cool. Well, Chromomancer seems interesting. I feel like you really need to make the you have to really focus on time freeze if you want to make it good, though. It seems like you really want to focus on one thing on it specifically. Moving on. We have one of the Ascendancies for Ranger. They actually don't have names on them anywhere, which is interesting. It's not the Flask one, it's the other one. I'll be honest, I have no interest whatsoever in playing Ranger, really. I will probably play them at some point, but I did not pay attention to them really at all. We'll see, maybe this will change my mind looking at all the Ascendancies, but... so 1, we have Avidity. 30% chance that you would gain... that if you would gain frenzy charges, you would then gain up to your maximum number of frenzy charges. That's actually really good. Although, I think... I'm trying to remember the source for this, but I'm pretty sure in one of the interviews I heard Jonathan say that charges no longer give you anything by default. So, like, the charge itself doesn't give you anything, it's just used as a spender. Having said that, it's still probably pretty good, because whatever you spend the frenzy charges on is presumably still useful. We just don't really know what that is yet. Moving up, we go to Thrilling Chase. Benefits from consuming frenzy charges for your skills have 50% chance to be doubled. Again, probably good, but I don't know what consuming the frenzy charges does yet. Like, unless we've seen an ability maybe that tells you that it consumes frenzy charges, but I don't remember that. The only one I remember is power charges, I think. Because the monk had some stuff where you could generate and consume power charges. I don't remember anything about Frenzy or endurance charges yet, but interesting. Eagle Eyes, we know about this one. You have no accuracy penalty at distance. It's weird that it specifies at distance, because I think the way that accuracy works in PoE 2 is it's different to PoE 1 in that inherently you get less accurate the further away from an enemy you are. So it's more of a, like, accuracy is a nerf stat for range characters more so than it is melee characters. No accuracy penalty at distance. I wonder if this just means that you have no accuracy penalty at all. I don't know, it's odd that it specifies at distance. We'll have to see what that means. Alright, so we have 4, which splits into 2 choices by the look of it. We have Point Blank or Far Shot. Projectiles deal 20% more hits. Projectile deal 20% more hits damage to targets in the first 3.5 meters of their movement, scaling down with distance traveling to reach 0 after 7 meters. Either right point blank or at far. I guess, I mean, it's a pretty simple node, I suppose. It's just the wording is it's very wordy, let's say. Hits damage is interesting. I guess because hits is underlined, that's why it's pluralized, but it makes the sentence very confusing. Then we have 5, which is the middle. Endless munitions, skills fire an additional projectile. That seems very good. Just additional projectile is always good. And we have 6. You can apply an additional mark. Interesting. 7. Gain Tailwind on skill use, lose all Tailwind when hit. I assume Tailwind is the same, but maybe it's different. Tailwind is a stacking buff which grants 1% increased movement speed, 3% increased skill speed, and 15% increased evasion rating per stack, 10 seconds. Refreshing whenever you gain another stack, maximum of 10 stacks. Stacks up to 10, so you get 10% movement speed, 30% skill speed, and 150% evasion rating. I mean, seems pretty good. Presumably, if you're playing Ranger, you're going to be stacking evasion anyway, right? So the fact that you lose it all when you hit is kind of fine, because your defensive layer is evasion, so you're not going to get hit that often, hopefully. Anyway. I don't know, it seems pretty good, I guess. And then finally we have 8, which is Wind Ward. 3% less damage taken per tail. Okay. That seems good. So that's up to 30% less damage taken. Because this refreshes, right? Per stack for 10 seconds, refreshing whenever you gain another stack. So every time you use a skill, you... Okay, yeah. So you're just going to have... That's pretty defensive, actually. I quite like that. Again, kind of boring. Both the ranger classes seem really boring to me by comparison to everything else, but I don't know. Maybe there'll be some interesting things we can do. We'll find out. Next up we have, Gemling Legionnaire. One of the interesting ones. Okay, 1 is up to the left. 10% to quality of all gems. This is actually lower than they showed before, I think. I think it was 12% before. But 10% is fine. 2 implant gems, plus 1 to level of all skills. Damn! 10 quality and plus 1 level. 3, 30% less cost of skills. Skill gems have 30% more attribute requirements. It's really hard to see how useful that is without, like, fully theory crafting everything and looking at all the skills in conjunction with it, but it's interesting. 4, which is up the second tree. Integrated efficiency grants 3 additional skill slots. 5, which is up to the left. Gem studded, rather. You can use 2 copies of the same support gem in different skills. Wow. Seems really good. 6, Thaumatological Infusion. Thaumaturgical, rather. We've already seen this one. Max cold, fire, or lightning resistance per support gem. Per 4 blue supports. 4 blue, red, 4 green. So how many supports are you going to have total? I think you have 9 skills base. 10, 11, 12. So if you split it all equally, that puts you at 90 res on everything. That seems quite good. For 1 node, Jesus. I mean, it means you have to use quite specific support gems, I suppose, but like 1 node just giving you like easily giving you 90 max res on everything seems nuts. That seems so powerful. Interesting. Alright, going to 7. Adaptive capability. Attribute requirements of gems can be satisfied by your highest attribute. That combos quite well with advanced thaumaturgy. Because they have more attribute requirements, but that doesn't matter because you can scale all the attribute requirements of 1 attribute, so you don't have to split anywhere near as much. It also makes thaumaturgical infusion easier, because you don't need a bunch of attributes to get all these supports in. You can just use 1 and scale it off 1 attribute. Then we have enhanced effectiveness. Inherent bonuses from intelligence, strength, and dex are doubled. Wow. Wow. I feel like this is gonna be the best all-purpose class. You can do anything with this. Like, the class itself doesn't give any... It's interesting for a specialization, right? Which is essentially what Ascendancies are. Because this doesn't really specialize in anything except for being an all-purpose, fantastic class. That's crazy. I'm particularly interested in 6. I think I'm correct here, right? Because I think there's 9 skills by default. You can get an additional 3, which is 12. There's 5 support gems per skill. 60 supports. 60 divided by 4 is 15. 75 plus 15 is 90. Yeah? That seems so nuts. For 1 node. I mean, I guess you have to go through 4, but you would go through that anyway if you're going there. It's not like it's a wasted... Fuck me, that just seems so good. That's so much defense for 1 node on an Ascendancy. Again, it's somewhat conditional on actually having the support gems, but like I feel like that's trivially easy to get. You just need 15 of each support. You need to like balance it, but Jesus. Damn, it seems so good for like everything. Like you can make any build out of this, I feel like. God, that's cool. Alright, moving on, we have... Ooh, the Infernalist. So the Infernalist, I think, is going to be my second character. I was tossing up between Infernalist being my first character or my second character. I want to do a minion character. Let's have a look. So we have 1, which is down to the left. Altered Flesh. 20% of cold damage taken as fire damage. 20% of lightning damage taken as fire damage. 20% of physical damage taken as chaos damage. Interesting. I like that a lot. Makes me wonder, like, immediately here too, seeing 20% of physical damage taken as chaos. Chaos inoculation immediately goes into my head. It's very cool. Next we have 2, which is Baedet's Gaze. Reserves 25% of life, plus 1 to maximum mana per 6 maximum life. Okay, so it's straight mana stacking based off life, which means you probably wouldn't go Chaos Inoculation if you were taking that, obviously. So you get 1/6 of your life as extra mana. That seems good. I don't know. I have to say numbers. I can't... The percentages themselves, I don't know how good that is yet without... It seems on the face of it to be pretty good. Until you actually, like, see the numbers in game, it's probably going to be harder. So 3... It's also worth noting that 2, 3, and 4 are all separate, so you don't have to node through them to get anywhere. 3, we have Beidut's Will. Reserve 25... Reserves 25% of life, +1 to maximum spirit per 25 maximum life. And then Beidut's Hand, reserve 25% of life, +1 to maximum energy shield per 8 maximum life. You could just take that, and it's intriguing. You reserve 75% of your life, and you just buff your spirit, mana, and energy shield from it. 5, we have Demonic Possession, grants the demon form. It is a shapeshift ability. Shapeshift into a demon, vastly boosting the power of your spells. You gain Demon Flame every second you remain in demon form, causing your life to be lost at an ever-increasing rate. Revert to human form if you reach 1 life. Use a skill that isn't a spell Revert to human form if you reach 1 life. Use a skill that isn't a spell or reactivate this skill. Interesting. So you can't attack in demon form. You can only use spells, which is probably fine. I don't expect myself to be using attacks on that anyway, but... going to 6, maximum 10 Demon Flame. So if you take Master Darkness, it stops the Demon Flame from going up once it hits 10 stacks. Which means you can hit the point where your regen is... well, presumably, you can hit the point where your regen completely counteracts the Demon Flame. This was Pyromantic Pact, so this is the one that changes your mana, right? Yep. Maximum mana is replaced by maximum Infernal Flame. Gain Infernal Flame instead of spending mana for skill costs. Take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage when Infernal Flame reaches maximum. Lose all Infernal Flame on reaching maximum Infernal Flame. 10% of Infernal Flame lost per second if none was gained in the past 2 seconds. 10% lost per second if none was gained in the past 2 seconds. Okay. This is incredibly interesting. It means that you can never not cast a spell, right? You're never going to run out of mana. Because you're building up rather than taking from a pool. You're building up to a big explosion of damage on yourself. I assume here they take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage. I assume that's pre-mitigation. So I assume you probably are going to want to get to 90% fire resistance. So you're going to be taking 10% of your maximum life and energy shield as fire damage when you reach maximum. I assume. Otherwise... seems dead in the water, but 8, so you pass through that to get there. Bringer of Flame. While not on low Infernal Flame, all damage from you and allies in your presence contributes to ignite chance and magnitude. So I think they've confirmed that that low is 35%. So as long as you're above 35% Infernal Flame, all your damage from you and allies in your presence contribute to ignite chance and magnitude. Interesting what it means by contributes to ignite chance. We'll have to... I wish I could hover these right now and see what they mean. Interesting. And then 9 is if you go the other way. While on high Infernal Flame, you and allies in your presence gain 20% of damage as fire damage. And then 10 here, is just by itself, is you get the Hellhound. So learn the skill Summon Infernal Hound. 20% of damage from hits is taken from your Hellhound's life before you. That sounds good. Summons a reviving Infernal Hound, which ignites enemies near it. The Hound takes a portion of damage from hits for you. Cool. And then lastly, we have 11 here, which is Grinning Immolation. Become ignited when you deal a critical hit, taking 15% of your life and energy shield as fire damage per second. 30% more critical damage bonus. Interesting. So you explode whenever you deal a crit, but your crits do 30% more critical damage. Interesting. Moving on. We have the other Ascendancy for the Monk, which I haven't really paid attention to, but it's essentially the Avatar one, right? So you go north, you get Lead Me Through Grace. Gain 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield on equipped body armor. Gain 1 spirit for every 15 evasion rating on equipped body armor. Cannot gain spirit from equipment. Interesting. Like, presumably, if you're going the main archetype, you're going to be going evasion ES anyway. So that's probably fine. You can't gain spirit from equipment, but you probably can get the pickups through the campaign, which I think, was it 30 spirit per pickup in the campaign, and there's one in each act, so 180 spirit baseline. and then plus your energy shield and EV, I guess. Cool, I guess. 2, and protect me from harm. Evasion rating also grants physical damage reduction, 40% less evasion rating. Interesting. So you get 40% less EV, but it acts like armor? These are both very interesting, but again, until you get into game and can see the numbers, it's hard to say. Like, you don't look at that and immediately go, oh, that's incredibly powerful. You just look at it and go, that could be good, I guess. It does mean that you can get, if you do an energy shield evasion split, and you get this as well, you essentially are being protected by energy shield evasion and effectively armor as well, which is cool, I guess. Anyway, 3, you get meditate, which we saw. I think this is doubling your energy shield, right? Channels to recharge energy shields can overcharge your energy shield up to double its normal maximum. Channeling ends when you take damage channeling ends when you take damage or your energy shield is double its normal maximum. The skill cannot be used if your energy shield is already double its normal maximum or if you have no maximum energy shield. Well, obviously that makes sense. Can't double 0. Cool, I guess. The one thing I will say is in the presentation, it looked like it took a long time to channel up the double. I don't know if I'm going to have the patience to sit there channeling my energy shield in between every encounter. Doesn't seem like the kind of gameplay loop I would want to play, but it's an interesting node by itself. But it is worth noting it is by itself, so it's just kind of like right here. Unless they have something interesting too, like maybe they have a cast on channel. And you can just have a really high evasion rating, so if enemies can't hit you and you stand there meditating, raising your energy shield constantly and cast on channel, because that could be a thing maybe, I don't know. To be clear, I don't know if cast on channel is in the game, but if it is, interesting. Next we have 4, I am the Blizzard, and 5, I am the Thunder. They're seemingly choice nodes. I guess you could get both, theoretically. Because they're not a split node. Gain 10% of damage as extra cold damage. On freezing enemies, create chilled ground. Cool. Gain 10% of damage as extra lightning damage. 25% chance on shocking enemies to create shocked ground. Cool. I mean, they both seem great. And I shall rage, grant you the Unbound Avatar. Gain Unbound Fury by inflicting elemental ailments with hits on enemies. Once you reach maximum Unbound Fury, consume it to become the Unbound for a duration, vastly augmenting your elemental prowess. Cool. I don't know what vastly augmenting my elemental prowess means. I assume it just means you do more ailments, like ailment buildup is quicker and you do more damage, is my assumption. Find out in game, I guess. 7. Meta skills gain 35% more energy. Cool. I guess that goes into my idea of cast when channel. So meta skills are the ones where you can socket something into it, right? So cast on Ignite, for instance. Or cast on Freeze, I guess you would probably use on the Monk. You're probably going to use cast on Freeze or cast on Shock. But they gain 35% more energy, so they're going to be going off more frequently. I guess I see what they're going for here, is you take this and then you have stuff that's cast on Shock, cast on Freeze. And then you go through freezing and shocking everything and then cast spells on top of that, coming from your meta gems. Then we go south, we have 8, Sunder My Enemies. Critical hits ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. It's somewhat confusing me here, and I'm not sure whether or not it's just covering their own bases. Because it says ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. This is obviously good because you don't want to ignore a negative elemental resist. But I was under the impression that they couldn't get negative elemental resists. No, not necessarily. You can't get penetration to the point where you're penetrating into negative resistance. But that doesn't mean monsters might not have elemental weaknesses, essentially. They could have that just by default. Interesting. And then finally we have the last node, which is and scatter them to the winds. I do love the naming convention in these Ascendancies, by the way. Particularly this monk one, where they have like the first half of a phrase and then the second half of a phrase, which directly links into it. So sunder my enemies and scatter them to the winds. Grant skill Elemental Expression. Trigger Elemental Expression on melee critical hit. Creates a fiery explosion, an arcing bolt of lightning, and an icy wave of projectiles. The chance for an explosion is proportional to your strength. For a bolt, proportional to your dexterity, and for a wave, proportional to your intelligence. Interesting. Interesting. I still like the Chayula Monk better. It seems more interesting to me off the bat, but there is some interesting things you can do here with ailment stacking by the look of it. Next up, we have the other Ascendancy for the Ranger, so the Flask one. We have one Connected Chemistry, 50% more Flask charges gained. Cool. Pretty simple. Enduring Elixirs. Life Flask effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. Life Flask effects do not queue. That's relatively good for survivability. That's essentially the same as what it is in POE 1, right? I've never really played a Ranger in POE 1 either, if I'm being honest. So I don't quite remember how all this shit works, but I think that's the same idea in POE 1, right? Where you just hit your life flask, and your life flask is what keeps you alive constantly because it never runs out, essentially. 3, we have Contagious Contamination. The most damaging poison on enemies you kill is spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. And we have 4, which is the follow-on from that, which is Overwhelming Toxicity. Double the number of poisons you can inflict on enemies. 35% less poison duration. I feel like they actually said this in the presentation, but I wasn't really paying attention. Is there a cap on poisons you can do in POE 1? I don't think there is. I think you can just keep stacking poisons, right? But the fact that you can double the number of poisons it implies that there is a limit in POE 2. Interesting. Next you have the very crazy 5, which is Brew Concoction. So we have Poison, Fulminating, Shattering, Explosive, or Bleeding. So poisonous, from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes, dealing unarmed chaos attack damage in an area. Poison inflicted by this skill has more effect. Mana flask to throw a bottle explodes, dealing unarmed lightning attack damage in an area, inflicting lightning exposure. Deals cold exposure, fire exposure, and then physical and bleeding inflicted. Interesting. I mean, it's pretty much what I expected this to be. It didn't look particularly impressive in the showcase, for my mind. Kind of just throwing like little bottles wasn't. it just felt boring to me, is the main thing. Moving on to 6, which is this one here. Grants 5 passive skill points. I mean, that's pretty good. I don't know whether it's Ascendancy level good, but it is pretty good. And then 7, 30% less movement speed penalty while using skills while moving, and then you're unaffected by slows. Unaffected by slow is useful. So this is the, what's it called, the Storm's kind of sorcerer, I guess. I can't remember what the name of half of these was. I kind of wish there was like a name for these on here, because I can't remember half of them. 1, we got at the top. Scoring wins. Exposure you inflict lowers the affected resistance by an additional 20%. Damn. So you want to be stacking exposures. 2, Tempest Caller. Grant skill Elemental Storm. Trigger Elemental Storm on critical hit with spells. Creates a stationary fire cold or lightning storm at a target location for a duration, based on the highest elemental damage type for the hit that triggered the storm. Hits which do not deal elemental damage do not trigger the storm. Okay, that makes sense. Rain Dancer. Elemental storms have 150% more cooldown recovery rate. Interesting. It has a cooldown. That makes it less interesting to me. I mean, maybe you can trivialize the cooldown to be essentially nothing, but if you're gonna have something that triggers on crit, I don't like the idea of triggering on crit having a cooldown, you know what I mean? Yeah, I just don't like it. I feel like you would want to get to 100% crit so you could just have storms fucking everywhere, right? But with a cooldown, I don't know, maybe it's fine. And at least there's a way to scale the cooldown, right? Because you've got this, and presumably you'll be able to support it with support gems as well, so maybe it's fine. 4, Heavy Snows. Target can be affected by 2 of your chills at the same time. Your chills can reduce action speed by up to a maximum of 35%, 25% less magnitude of chill you inflict. Your chills can reduce action speed up to a maximum of 35%. Is that 35% each? I mean, you can get to 70% if you stack 2 chills on an enemy? Or does that mean that the maximum is 35% with both chills? I assume it means 70% maximum, because you stack, I don't know, it's confusing. Find out in game, I guess. 5, Shaper of Winter. All damage from hits contribute to chill magnitude. That makes sense. So you can chill with everything. 6. Strike twice. This is the lightning version. Targets can be affected by 2 shock at the same time, 50% less shock duration. And then we go 7. All damage from hits contributes to shock chance. Cool. 8. We're going down the left-hand side now. Constant Gale. You have Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge grants 10% more cast speed and 20% more mana regeneration rate. I mean, just having Arcane Surge all the time is pretty cool. I like that. That's a cool ascendancy point. And then we have 9, which is down here. Force of Will. 1% increased effect of Arcane Surge on you per 15 maximum mana. Wow. Increased effect. Not more effect. Okay, not as nuts as I was expecting. But still... Because it means you're going to have, what? For 150 mana, you'll go up to 11% and 22%. If you can get to 1500 mana. I mean... I guess it depends how easily it is to stack mana. Presumably you can pretty easily. And I feel like mana stacking is probably a good idea on a sorcerer. That tends to make sense to me, because you will probably want to rock Archmage anyway. Yeah, it's okay. And then 10 we have up here. 40% of elemental damage taken recouped as energy shield. Holy shit. 40%. Damn. Well, that just seems good. Okay. We still haven't got any of the warriors, right? Here we go, warrior. The next 2 are both warrior, and the last one is... Okay. Warriors. So this one is... the Titan, right? Yeah, this looks like the Titan. So 1, we have Stone Skin. 50% more armor from equipped body armor. Well, damn, that seems pretty damn good. 2, we have Earthbreaker. 20% chance for slam skills you use to activate... 20% chance for slam skills you use yourself to cause aftershocks. Okay, so you can't do totems with this, I guess. So 1 in 5 of your slams has an aftershock. I assume the aftershock is the same way that Earthquake works in POE 1. Which, by the way, is the aftershock is essentially just a second slam that goes off after the first one. It's like a, I mean, aftershock. It's relatively self-explanatory by the name. Interesting. Go up to 3, Ancestral Empowerment. Every second slam skill you use yourself is ancestrally boosted. Oh, aftershocks. This is right here. I'm fucking retarded. Right here it says it. For ancestrally boosted, an ancestrally boosted skill has 20% more damage in area of effect, but it's still like 10% net damage, right? And the area of effect is also huge. 20% area of effect is nuts. And then aftershocks. Aftershocks are bursts of area damage that occur after the initial impact of the skill, causing them. If not otherwise specified, the aftershock will deal the same damage as the initial impact in the same area. Essentially just doubling, 20% chance to double your damage with a second hit. Colossal Capacity. Carry a chest that adds 20 inventory slots. We did see this one was actually leaked a while ago because someone hovered over it and people were going frame by frame. But I say people, I was going frame by frame in the video when I saw it. Interesting Ascendancy node. I guess, what do you get when you go through it? Hulking Form. 50% increased effect of small passive skills. Well, fuck me. I was gonna say, I don't know if this is strong enough for an Ascendancy, because having, like, it's a utility thing, right, rather than a power thing, so you wouldn't usually take power, utility over power. But when the next thing is this, so you're getting 7, I don't know how it rounds, but all of the travel nodes too, like the general travel nodes, you're gonna be getting 7.5. Again, I don't know how it rounds, whether it rounds up or down or what goes on there. It might just actually give you a half point. But 7.5 strength per point, so it's going to be easier to strength stack. I feel like this seems hugely powerful, but I guess the point is you're going through 2 Ascendancies to get it, and then you get this added bonus of this utility of the 20 inventory slots. Huh. Maybe I'm off base, but I feel like 50% increased effect of all small passives is nuts. It just seems so good. Again, you have to take 4 Ascendancy nodes to get there, I guess. But, damn. Going out to 6, we have Crushing Impacts. Your hits are Crushing Blows. Crushing Blows cause a heavy stun on enemies that are primed for stun. Okay. And that's just all of your hits, so whenever anything is primed to stun, it will stun. And primed to stun is... Normal enemies are primed to stun when they have at least 40% heavy stun buildup. Magic enemies are instead primed at 60% buildup, rare at 70, and unique at 80. Okay. Makes sense. I guess you've just got to figure out when heavy stun buildup exists. I think I know what heavy stun is, just from watching footage. Hitting an enemy builds towards a heavy stun based on the damage dealt. Different enemies have different heavy stun thresholds and durations, with very large monsters having a higher heavy stun threshold. Players cannot be heavy stunned. While an enemy is heavy stunned, they cannot act and count as immobilized. Physical damage and melee damage each cause 50% more heavy stun build-up. These bonuses are multiplicative with each other. That makes sense. So heavy stun is harder to do with magic builds, which obviously makes sense. Surprising strength is number 7, so that's after you get crushing blows. 40% more damage against heavy stunned enemies. I guess this makes sense. So you're getting heavy stuns more often, and when you do, you're getting a massive damage bonus. And then finally we have 8, which is Mysterious Lineage. 15% more maximal life. That seems good. Because there's less life from the tree, this seems like a really cool 15% more maximum life specifically, so it's multiplicative, which is nice. Interesting. Titan seems good. Moving on, we have, this is the totem boy, right? The monkey, which we don't know what it does. So we go up to 1. Anvil's weight. Break armor equal to 10% of hit damage dealt. I am surprised they did not give me break armor as a stat here, but presumably it just does what it says on the tin and it breaks their armor, so you do more damage to them, right? 2, which is going up through past that. You can break enemy armor to below 0. So armor is like physical resistance, essentially. So if you can break their armor to below 0, you'll give them weakness to physical damage, I guess. Moving on to 3. Jade Heritage. Grant skill, Encase in Jade. Gain a stack of Jade every second. Consumes all stacks of Jade to grant a buff for a duration that absorbs all damage from hits up to a maximum based on the amount of Jade consumed. While in case you cannot move or perform actions. Cool. So the way that this was explained in an interview with Jonathan, I think it was on Gazzy and Stuff Microtransactions on their podcast, where he said that the video didn't do a good job showing what this actually does, but it's a channel, essentially. So you hold the button, and for as long as you're holding the button, you're encased in Jade, and you're just immune to all damage. Which is cool. And as soon as you let go of that, you're out of it again. So the idea is that you can use it actively to block any AoE or any slam or anything like that. You can just hit the button, wait till the slam's over, let go of the button, and you're good. You're good to go. And it consumes this Jade as a resource. So 4, Answered Call. Grant skill, Ancestral Spirits. Trigger Ancestral Spirits when you summon a totem. Each of your totems will summon an Ancestral Spirit minion to fight for you. If the totem that you summon the minion dies, then the Ancestral Spirit will too. We still don't know what the monkey do. I assume it just attacks things, right? It's just a summon. 27 damage from hits is taken from your nearest totem's life before you. Okay, that's some survivability right there. That's cool. And we go on to 6, which is this part down here. Renly's Training. Gain 40% base chance to block from equipped shields instead of the shield's value. I don't know how good that is because I haven't seen shield bases really. I'm trying to think shield bases and remembering the block chance, but I can't. Presumably it's pretty good because it's Ascendancy node, but hard to say. Then we have Turtle Charm, 35% less block chance. Can block damage from all hits while shield is not raised. I think what this means. So I think the default nature of block is different in PoE too. In that, I think it can block projectiles and you can block attacks. You can't block AoEs and degens, you never could, but degens and AoEs, I think is the way it works. So I think what this Ascendancy node is doing is it's giving you 35% less block chance, and you can block AoE damage, I think is what this means. It's somewhat confusing. Because they have active block in the game as well as regular PoE block, sometimes their notation is really confusing to me because they're using block in both contexts. But like, why would it mean that it's only while the shield is not raised? I assume that's just trying to say somewhat clunkily that generic block will block from all hits, not active block, I think is what that's going for. I don't know, it's very confusing, as I said. If someone understands this better than me, let me know in the comments, but this is... I am confusion. Alright, moving on to 8, we have Warcaller's Bellow. Corpses in your presence explode when you Warcry, dealing 25% of their life as physical damage. Cool. That's just a cool ability. And then 9 is Great Wolf's Howl, ignore Warcry cooldowns. So you can have a Warcry totem build. I quite like that. Cool kind of minion melee build, I guess. I honestly think, I'll be honest, Titan seems fucking cooler by like 100 miles, but I mean, it depends how good these summons are with your totems. Like maybe like you're having like a bunch of, if you can get like a bunch of different totems, like maybe if you can get like 5 or 6 totems up at once, you can just go in totem, 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 and then Jade Shield yourself and let your minion just kill everything. That'd be interesting. I'd do that. That sounds fun. And then after a few things die, you come out of your Jade Shield and you Warcry and explode everything. That's cool. That's a cool combo, I guess. I don't know. Remains to be seen. This one is far less interesting to me than the Titan, I'll be honest. Moving on to our final Ascendancy. This is the other Ascendancy for the Mercenary. I assume this one is more specific to Mercenary because the fucking Gemling Legionnaire was the most generic. When I say generic, it sounds negative. I mean this in a very good way. It is the most generic class specialization because you can do anything with it. It just makes any build better. There's like, it lowers some of the more specified things you can do, but you could take any kind of archetype you could possibly want and throw it in the Gemling Legionnaire and it's gonna work. I like it a lot. Okay, so we have 1, which is up to the left. Weapon Master. 20 passive skill points become a weapon set skill points. Specialize in your weapon swap more, which is interesting. Pitiless Killer gives you Culling Strike. I assume Culling Strike is the same. Culling Strike kills normal enemies if their life is at 30% or below. Magic enemies are instead killed at 20%, rares at 10, and uniques at 5. These thresholds are checked before the damage of the hit is applied. Interesting. I can't remember the numbers on Culling Strike in POE 1. Is this the same as POE 1? Most of the time I have Culling, it's through Slayer. And Slayer's culling works differently, I think, so I don't know if the numbers are the same. Doesn't matter. Judge, Jury, and Executioner, which is up after Culling Strike. This is the Decimating Strike, so this is like the opposite cull, right? You do it from the top. Hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% of life before the damage of the hit is applied. Between 5 and 30% of life. What is the between 5 and 30% based on? Is it the same as Culling Strike, where it's 5% on bosses, 10% on rares, 20% on... I'm going to assume that this is the same. It's like reverse Culling Strike. So on a boss, you would do 5% for your first hit, 5% on the last hit. At the moment, I'm going to make this assumption that Decimating Strike is literally just reverse culling. So between 5 and 30 is the same as between 30 and 5 here, so it just depends on the enemy type. Having said that, it means normal monsters are insanely easy to kill. Because you immediately do 30% of their health, then you have to do, what, 40%, and then they get culled? That's kind of nuts. But I guess cool. I mean, it fits like the hunter archetype, right? And I mean, who cares about the balance of normal enemies, let's be honest. Anyway, next we have Witchbane, which is in the middle. Enemies have a maximum concentration equal to 40% of their maximum life. Break enemy concentration on hit equal to 100% of damage dealt. Enemies regain 10% of concentration every second if they haven't lost concentration in the past 5 seconds. Concentration. Enemies have less cooldown recovery rate the lower their concentration, scaling down to 50% less cooldown recovery rate when concentration is 0. This is an insanely complex mechanic, but I understand what they're doing with it. They're essentially meaning, so it seems like mainly a boss killing effect, or a rare killing effect as well. I guess rares and bosses is where it's going to be relevant. And it's going to lower the ability, anything that's attacking you with cooldowns, which presumably is most of the enemies, I guess? I assume that most enemies have a cooldown on their abilities for this to be useful, right? So it just means that they can use their abilities less often, which is cool. This has a lot of back-end numbers that make it really hard to tell how good it is. Like, maybe it's great. Maybe it just means boss fights are way easier because they're not doing their abilities all the time. Like, for instance, let's make a POE 1 analysis, right? If you had Witchbane against Shaper, maybe he would do the slam, like, what is it, 50, right? 50% less cooldown recovery. Maybe he only slams half as much in a fight. That's really good. If you have that, I mean, it's very specific, but it's really good. So it means once you get an enemy down to 40%, down to 60% life, as long as you are hitting them once every 5 seconds, then they will use their abilities half as much. So it seems like it's specifically designed for long boss fights. I mean, again, you're fighting Shaper, he slams half as often after 40% of his health's gone. That seems good, I guess. Again, very specific though. I guess what's 5? You have to go through 4 to get to 5, so what's 5? No Mercy. Deal up to 30% more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration. Yeah, I mean, Twin build, you're ramping. Do 40% of their health. That allows you to do 30% more damage. Literally ramping. This could be really good, but it's like esoteric enough that until you get into game, I don't know how much I like it. It's a bit too obfuscated, I think, to be like really like catching me. Anyway, moving on, we have 6. Obsessive Rituals. Grants Sorcery Ward, 50% last armor and evasion rating. Cool, and what is Sorcery Ward? Passively manifests a protective barrier which takes elemental damage from hits for you until depleted. The barrier instantly recharges to its full value a short time after it stops taking damage or is fully depleted. It's like a energy shield for your energy shield, I guess. It is somewhat dependent on how high that ward scales, of course, but also Sorcery Ward, is it literally ward? Like from POE 1? I didn't consider that, but maybe it is. Interesting. Again, hard to say until you get into game how good this is. Maybe it's useless, maybe it's great. Going up to 7, you get Ceremonial Ablution. 50% increased effective Sorcery Ward. Sorcery Ward recovers 50% faster. If Sorcery Ward's good, this is going to be a mandatory. And then you go 8 for Zealous Inquisition. 10% chance for enemies you kill to explode, dealing 100% of their maximum life as physical damage. Chance is doubled against undead demons. That seems fucking nuts. Like, a lot of this other stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Decimating Strike, Culling Strike, both cool. The Zealous Inquisition, 10% chance for enemies you kill to explode, dealing 100% of their maximum life as physical damage. Chance is doubled against undead and demons. That's just good. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. That's just good. But with that, we've come to the end. So that's every single one. Some of these are boring to me, specifically the Ranger ones. Nothing stands out as particularly cool with these. The only thing I can see here is Tailwind and getting more damage too. So you're getting what? 30% skill speed, 10% movement speed, 30% damage, and 150% evasion rating. If you can keep that up all the time, that seems pretty good, but otherwise it's kind of boring to me. Whereas the other Ranger one, this one seems entirely boring to me. Nothing in here stands out as being really, really cool, aside from Enduring Elixirs, but it's pretty much the same as in POE 1, I think, so it's kind of like old hat, as it were. The 5 passive skill points is cool, I guess, but it's not interesting. I should say it's good, it's not interesting, I think is probably the best way to put it. But some of these other ones I'm definitely more interested in playing now than I was before, notably Titan. I was kind of ignoring melee for the start, but Titan seems really cool. Just spamming stuns over and over again, but this here seems like such a cool fucking node. Increased effect of small passives just seems nuts. I think my plan is the same. Chayula Monk, a lot of this stuff seems really, really cool. I like the fact that these flames are leech rather than just regain. There's a lot of cool stuff here. I have no idea how long this video is going, by the way. I've just been sitting here yapping. So apologies if it's been going for a while, but I think that's going to be it. If you like the video, please leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of jazz, and I'll see you next time. Which, hopefully, will be in 2 days, because then I'll be playing Path of Exile 2. That's the hope, anyway. I really need it to be the 6th, or 7th here, I guess, technically. In Australia, it's the 7th. But we're nearly there, boys. Nearly there.